Good morning, Asia. Good evening, America. You are watching World DNA with me, Jyotsna Kumar.
And I'm Hem Khorsaran. On the show today, from West Asia, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has stated that Israel does in fact plan to take military control of the entire Gaza Strip, though not to govern it directly. The announcement has drawn a sharp response from Hamas, accusing Netanyahu of putting hostages' lives at risk for political gain. How will things unfold going forward? That's something we'll explore on the show today.
Also on the show, former U.S. President Donald Trump has confirmed that he is willing to meet Russian President Vladimir Putin, even if Ukraine's leader is not part of the talks. While speculation grows over a potential summit, the Kremlin signals what may and may not be on the table. We'll bring you more details on that story on the show today. Let's begin with the headlines first.
Chinese ambassador to India criticizes Donald Trump after the US president slaps additional 25% tariff on Indian goods over oil trade with Russia, calls him a bully on social media.
Mr. President, just to follow up on the India tariffs, do you expect increased trade negotiations, since you've announced the 50% tariff?
No, not until we get it resolved.
Donald Trump rules out increased trade negotiations with India after imposing 50% tariff on Indian imports. Remarks follow his warning of secondary sanctions on countries trading with Moscow.
Brazilian President Lula da Silva dials Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi to discuss the fallout of US President Trump's imposition of 50% tariffs on both countries. The two leaders vow to defend multilateralism.
Does Putin have to meet with Zelensky in order and before you and Putin have to meet? Or
No.
Donald Trump says he would meet with Vladimir Putin for upcoming talks on the Ukraine war, even if the Russian leader does not sit down with Ukrainian President Zelensky.
Well, we don't want to keep it. We want to have a security perimeter. We don't want to govern it. We don't want to be there as a governing body. We want to hand it over to Arab forces.
Benjamin Netanyahu says Israel plans to take full control of Gaza but does not intend to govern it. As he convened his security cabinet to discuss updated plans 22 months into the war.
Lebanon says an Israeli strike on country's east killed at least 5 people in the latest attack despite a November ceasefire in a war with militant group Hezbollah.
Turkey reaffirms its support to Syria's stability and reconstruction as Syrian interim President Ahmed al-Shara meets Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan in Damascus.
U.S. Coast Guard says 2 people die after a helicopter they were on board crashed into a barge on a Mississippi River, shutting the waterway to traffic near Alton in Illinois.
A medical light aircraft crashes into a small residential block near Kenyan capital Nairobi, killing at least 6 people and injuring 2 seriously. Now, in a dramatic escalation of US-India trade tensions, Donald Trump imposed 50% tariffs on Indian exports.
Now, this is double the previous rate as India continues to purchase Russian oil. Meanwhile, a sweeping wave of new tariffs from 10% to 50% or more on more than 60 countries is reshaping global markets. Markets are reacting, and India is fighting back.
From the Oval Office, Donald Trump has ruled out the possibility of increased trade negotiations with India, saying, and I'm quoting here, not until it gets resolved, after signing an executive order raising tariffs from 25 to 50% effective 27th of August.
So this is January 6th. These are the
Last headline में visual गलत चला है.
approximately 1,500.
Mr. President, just to follow up on the India tariffs, do you expect increased trade negotiations, since you've announced the 50% tariff?
No, not until we get it resolved.
Now, New Delhi has labelled the move unfair, unjustified and unreasonable, accusing the US of double standards for targeting India, while other buyers of Russian oil, China, Turkey, remain untouched. Prime Minister Modi affirmed his willingness to bear the cost for farmers, fishermen and dairy workers, citing national interest and energy security.
Now, across the globe, U.S. tariffs are surging. A broad structure of 10% to 50% has taken effect against more than 60 countries, with major markets like Brazil, Switzerland facing steep penalties. The U.S. average import tax now hovers around 18.6%, which is the highest since 1930s.
Global markets have taken notice. On the 1st of August, weak job data, just 73,000 jobs added in July, and unemployment up to 4.2% alongside Trump's tariffs, triggered a sell-off across Wall Street and international markets. Still, markets have recovered on bets of Federal Reserve rate cuts and strong earnings reports. Apple's investments helped boost sentiment, though concerns about inflation and supply chain upheaval persist. Analysts warn these tariffs could raise U.S. consumer prices, disrupt global supply chains and chill economic growth as well. All right, to discuss this further, we're now being joined by Johanna LeBlanc from Washington, D.C. She's a national security analyst and foreign relations expert. Thank you so much for joining us on World DNA.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, now I want to begin by the statement that Donald Trump had made in response to a question. He had said that there will be no increased trade negotiations, I'm stressing on that here, with India, and I'm quoting here, not until it gets resolved. Now, that's neither here nor there. What we're trying to understand is, does this mean that there needs to be a complete stop when it comes to stop on the trade between India and Russia when it comes to oil? Is that what will lead to further negotiations? Because we do have this 21-day window, which did offer some hope that there may be some negotiations which could help India get a deal in its favor as well. So what is your assessment of this?
Well, what I can tell you is that it's important for India to diversify its trading partners, right? And I think given the unpredictability that exists currently in Washington under this administration as it relates to trade relations, right? But what I think is also important to note is that this administration is committed to ensuring that policies with countries around the world are consistent with the America First policy. As you know, India is a member of BRICS, and the United States does not support such organization, such group. So I think that when it comes to the imposition of these tariffs, especially when it comes to India, it's a way to force India to reassess and to reevaluate some of its partners around the world. And once India takes certain positions, I think that the United States will be open to negotiate. But I think it's important to note that these trade tariffs are designed to bring countries to the table to negotiate and to ensure there's more alignment with the United States under the America First policy.
And considering that, what kind of negotiations, according to you, would we get to see, if at all, there are talks next?
Well, I think one of them is obviously, with BRICS, there is conversations about de-dollarization. The U.S. government has said and has maintained that if that conversation continues, certain countries will be sanctioned. So I think that if India is able to come to the table and tell Washington, listen, BRICS does not pose a threat to your to the U.S. dollar. And can actually convince the Trump administration of that, I think that will be a step in the right direction. But I think ultimately what the administration is looking for policy alignment. It's looking to ensure that countries are more aligned. As you know, there's a global war between, not a physical war rather, but a war for power between the United States and certainly China. And in 30 years, it is predicted that China will become more of a superpower. And Marco Rubio himself mentioned that. He said, we can't stop China, but what we can do is we can slow down China. So a lot of these policies and a lot of these negotiations are done in a way to slow down China's increased footprint around the world.
Right, Ms. LeBlanc, just a couple of things that I want to touch on, just clarify here as well. Of course, India did give a measured response to this earlier as well. Speaking of the duplicity that we're seeing playing out when it comes to the EU as well as China, when it comes to tariffs with the United States, also the trade between Russia and the United States, which when Donald Trump was asked about it, he didn't seem to know much about that as well. Now, India in its statement had said that for countries in the EU as well as the United States, this is not a national vital compulsion. And India, of course, it's prioritizing its own national interests. Also, many of the experts have now come out and said that India is not in any sort of a violation when it comes to oil trade with Russia because it was meant as a price cap, not to limit Russian revenue. That being said, we are seeing this complete U-turn when it comes to relations between the United States and India. Do you think it's going to have a spillover effect into other aspects of this bilateral relationship as well? Because right now what we're seeing is a complete realignment of the BRICS nations as well. They seem to be rallying behind Brazil and India and China as well. So what's your assessment of how things will pan out going forward?
No, but I think your assessment is absolutely correct. As the United States continue to take these very strict measures and the measures that many countries find to be quite unconscionable, it is pushing more and more countries that maybe traditionally were not even working together to forge alliance in order to combat this current administration. But I do think that in spite of the unpredictability that exists under this administration when it comes to trade, tariffs and so on, but I do agree that with this administration, it's more transactional, right? And nothing is permanent. As we know, currently there's litigation in the federal courts to suing the administration for imposing some of these tariffs, and we expect that it will go to the Supreme Court or whatnot. But I think that given the nature of how this current administration operates, it provides a great pathway for better negotiations. And I think as these countries are coming together, they're aligning together, they can actually come together and have a common position on some of these policies that are impacting trade around the world in order to get a more stronger and a more rapid response from the administration.
Absolutely, and on that, I wanted to also like your opinion on the fact that, you mentioned China, that perhaps U.S. wanted to pressure China. In fact, the reaction that came in after the when Trump said that he's going to impose more sanctions, China actually India has found an ally in China. So do you think that it would rather backfire? This Trump's decision would backfire instead of actually helping in what maybe would have been the opinion or to warn China?
Yeah, and that is precisely the point that I was trying to make. As the United States is imposing some of these trade tariffs, countries are uniting because they're looking to diversify their trading partners because they don't know what the U.S. market would look like. There's a lack of consistency. But I think, though, even in spite of these challenges, it's also opportunities for these countries to come together and negotiate with the United States together, right? I do believe countries have their own sovereignty, they have their own national challenges, their own their own foreign policy objectives. But I think now is an opportunity for countries to rally together and come to the United States with one proposal in terms of how they view the United States should address these various trade policies. Because the reality is that when these tariffs are imposed, somebody's going to have to eat the cost. It's not the companies. In many cases, it's the consumers in the United States or in India or in China or wherever in the world. So real lives are impacted, but it creates an opportunity for better negotiations. But there must be some kind of unity among some of these countries to be successful.
All right, well, thank you so much for joining us on the show and giving your opinions. That was Joanna LeBlanc joining us from Washington, D.C.
Thank you so much for having me.
Now, India and Brazil have taken a significant step in strengthening their bilateral ties amidst U.S. tariff tensions.
Both the leaders reaffirm their commitment to defending multilateralism and confronting economic challenges posed by U.S. tariffs in a telephone call held yesterday.
Now, during the phone call, Prime Minister Modi and President Lula discussed ways to deepen their strategic partnership, including in trade, technology, energy, defense, agriculture, health, and people-to-people ties. Both leaders reiterated their commitment to take India-Brazil strategic partnership to new heights.
Now, speaking about the conversation, the Indian Prime Minister on his social media account X said that he was committed to deepening ties with fellow BRICS member Brazil, adding that a strong people-centric partnership between global South nations benefits everyone.
Now, the discussion between the two leaders comes after U.S. President Donald Trump imposed 50% tariffs on Indian goods, citing New Delhi's continued purchase of Russian oil. While a first salvo of 25% tariffs on Indian goods took effect on Thursday, an additional 25% is set to take effect in 3 weeks.
Now, Brazil has also faced similar tariffs, with Trump accusing Brasilia of political persecution against former President Jair Bolsonaro. Now, Quad, or the Quadrilateral Security Dialogue, painstakingly built over decades to counter China's expansion, is crumbling under President Trump's trade war assault.
Now, Trump has imposed punishing tariffs on every single Quad partner, all this while calling them friends. India faces 50% penalties, Japan endures 24% reciprocal tariffs, and Australia, America's most loyal Pacific ally, gets slammed with steel and aluminum levies. Here's a report for more on this.
The Quadrilateral Security Dialogue took decades to forge, born from shared democratic values and mutual strategic interests. The Quad represents the Indo-Pacific's most formidable counter to Chinese expansionism. India, Japan, Australia, and the United States. 4 democracies united in purpose, bound by trust, strengthened by economic interdependence. Donald Trump has obliterated it all in the last 8 months of his presidency. Trump has systematically weaponized trade against every single Quad partner. He slammed India with a 50% tariff and warns of more for buying Russian oil. Japan, America's closest Pacific ally, faces a punishing 15%. Australia, too, has not escaped Trump's tariff rampage. Trump imposed a 10% baseline tariff on most imported goods. Geostrategist Brahma Chelani raises concerns that the shadow over the escalating tensions between Washington and New Delhi could postpone the next Quad meeting and Trump's visit to India. The Quad summit had been expected to be held in New Delhi as early as September, but given the present situation, the meeting in all likelihood will be delayed. Quad, a grouping born to stand tall against authoritarian overreach, now wobbles under the weight of one unpredictably protectionist administration. What took a decade to build, one term may undo. The Quad's echo is shrinking unless partners find new reasons to stand together. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
Now, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has said that Israel does not seek to control or govern Gaza indefinitely.
And that's contradicting reports that he was seeking to occupy the Palestinian territory. In an interview with Fox News, Netanyahu said that he intends to take full military control of the Gaza Strip, but has no plans to govern it. Listen to this.
Well, we don't want to keep it. We want to have a security perimeter. We don't want to govern it. We don't want to be there as a governing body. We want to hand it over to Arab forces that will govern it properly without threatening us and giving Gazans a good life. That's not possible with Hamas. The only way that you're going to have a different future is to get rid of this neo-Nazi army. The Hamas are monsters.
On Thursday, Netanyahu convened a security cabinet meeting to discuss a potential escalation in military operations, a move that could see Israeli ground forces operating deeper into the densely populated areas of Gaza.
Hamas accused Netanyahu of using the hostages as political leverage, calling his plan a blatant coup against negotiations and a continuation of genocide.
Inside Gaza, residents reacted with frustration, exhaustion and fear. They said the territory is already devastated and Israel will achieve nothing by taking over.
Netanyahu's decision to occupy Gaza, it's like there's nothing left to occupy in the first place. We are already dying, 100,000 deaths every day. Around 100 to 150 people die daily from starvation, on top of everything else we're going through. Practically all of Gaza has been squeezed into the western part of Gaza City, and that's all that's left.
In south of the occupied West Bank, mourners attended the funeral of Palestinian activist Avda Hatlin, whose body was handed over by Israel more than a week after he killed them.
Now in Tel Aviv, Israeli police clashed with protesters demanding the government to prioritize a hostage deal over continued military operations. Footage showed police using water cannons to disperse crowds as protesters chanted slogans, lit flares and held up banners bearing images of those still held hostage.
Meanwhile, a new international investigation has been launched after Bulgarian UN worker Marin Marinov was killed by Israeli tank fire in Gaza in March.
In Paris, anti-Israel and pro-Palestinian slogans were written outside the entrance of the office of Israeli airline El Al.
It is an act of terrorism because its aim is precisely to terrorize the employees of ELAL, to terrorize Israeli citizens, to frighten them, and to try to make them feel that they are not welcome, whether in France or outside of their country. Yes, it is an act of terrorism, and it is unacceptable.
As calls for accountability and peace grow louder, the war in Gaza appears far from over. Israel says that 50 hostages remain in Gaza, but Palestinian health authorities say that more than 61,000 people have been killed since October 2023 when the war began. And Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has made a massive pitch for India. Not only has he expressed his desire to come to India, Israel's Prime Minister has also revealed how Israel helped India during Operation Sindoor.
Speaking about India's anti-terror operation, Netanyahu highlighted defense cooperation between the two nations, further adding that Israeli equipment used during Operation Sindoor were battle-proven. Netanyahu further noted India and Israel can work to deal with cross-border terror, highlighting shared security interests.
Israel's Prime Minister also expressed enthusiasm for expanding connectivity and spoke about Israel's ambitions to have direct Tel Aviv and Bengaluru flight and praised the India-Middle East-Europe economic corridor.
When Israel's Prime Minister was asked about Trump's tariffs on India, he asserted that US President Donald Trump and the Indian Prime Minister are terrific friends and have so much common ground. Netanyahu was confident that Washington has an understanding that India is a solid partner. All right, with that, it's time now for a short break.
Well, don't go anywhere. We have a lot signed up on the other side of World DNA. We start with India's Election Commission that has issued a notification laying out the date for the election of India's second highest constitutional position.
Ready to dive into your daily dose of news?
Bringing you what's trending in the West and all that's setting trends in the East.
And all of this served up with a side of insightful banter.
We don't just bring you the latest stories.
We bring you your talking points for the day.
And while you do that, from the busy streets of New York, I will provide you with deeper insights on the developments through the course of the day in the U.S.
The show that keeps you ahead of the global curve. A conversation you'd want to be a part of.
A place where news becomes an engaging exchange.
We bring you stories that impact your present.
This is World DNA.
Join the conversation.
Israel's army draws a red line. Top generals say no to Netanyahu's call for a full Gaza occupation as Netanyahu pushes for total control. Hezbollah's ultimatum. Missiles are ready, targets locked. Hezbollah warns of an all-out war if Israel makes a move, rejects calls to disarm. How Tehran says it foiled Israel's deadliest spies and exposed Mossad's secret network after Israel's opening blow. And is Syria the next stage of the war? As Israel and the US redraw the map, is a new front line quietly taking shape? And who is really calling the shots in what's left of Damascus?
Watch the West Asia Post with me, Radhi Francis, every Friday at these times, only on WION. World is one.
WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION, World is one. From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening. As we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
Welcome back to World DNA. Thank you so much for staying with us. My name is Hema Korsaro, and here's a look at all the stories that we're tracking for you right now.
Taiwan launches probe into 16 Chinese technology companies for allegedly operating in the country without proper approval. The firms are suspected of secretly setting up offices in Taiwan and hiring local staff without authorization.
Chinese ambassador to India criticizes Donald Trump after the US president slaps additional 25% tariff on Indian goods over oil trade with Russia. Calls him a bully on social media.
Mr. President, just to follow up on the India tariffs, do you expect increased trade negotiations, since you've announced the 50% tariff?
No, not until we get it resolved. Modi's a friend of mine.
Donald Trump rules out increased trade negotiations with India after imposing 50% tariff on Indian imports. Remarks follow his warning of secondary sanctions on countries trading with Moscow.
Brazil's President Lula da Silva dials Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi to discuss the fallout of US President Donald Trump imposing 50% tariffs on both countries. The two leaders vow to defend multilateralism.
Does Putin have to meet with Zelensky in order and before you and Putin have to meet? Or
No.
Donald Trump says he would meet with Vladimir Putin for upcoming talks on the Ukraine war, even if the Russian leader doesn't sit down with Ukrainian President Zelensky.
Well, we don't want to keep it. We want to have a security perimeter. We don't want to govern it. We don't want to be there as a governing body. We want to hand it over to Arab forces.
Benjamin Netanyahu says Israel plans to take full control of Gaza but does not intend to govern it as he convened a security cabinet to discuss updated plans 22 months into the war.
Lebanon says an Israeli strike on country's east killed at least 5 people in the latest attack despite a November ceasefire in a war with militant group Hezbollah.
Turkey reaffirms its support to Syria's stability and reconstruction as Syrian interim President Ahmed al-Shara met Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan in Damascus.
The Election Commission of India has set the ball rolling on vice presidential election.
The poll body has issued a notification laying out the date for the election of India's second highest constitutional position.
Now, according to the notification of the Election Commission, the vice presidential election will take place on September 9th, with the last day to file nominations on August 21st.
With fortnight of time left for the nomination deadline, all eyes are now on India's ruling and opposition alliance. Who will be the vice presidential nominee for both the parties?
Well, with no clarity on the names yet, let's take a look at the number game in both the houses of the Indian Parliament. Members of both the houses of Parliament will collectively vote to elect country's next vice president.
And as things stand, the combined strength of both houses is 782. That sets the magic number of VP election votes to 392. With the NDA alliance having support of over 400 candidates that have the backing of ruling party will likely get elected. The strength of opposition, on the other hand, stands at 313 votes. If ruling alliance fails to nominate a consensus, opposition might have a chance on vice presidential post.
Well, with lots of names floating around for the position, the race for India's vice presidency remains wide open.
Now, the stories of India's bravest have now been formally included in the school syllabus.
In a major curriculum upgrade, NCERT has introduced new chapters that celebrate the lives and sacrifices of Field Marshal Sam Manekshaw, Brigadier Mohammed Usman, and Major Somnath Sharma.
This initiative, jointly driven by the Ministries of Defence and Education, aims to inspire students through stories of courage, duty and patriotism. The NCERT textbooks for classes 7th and 8th will now feature chapters on 3 legendary military figures, each symbolizing courage, sacrifice and national pride.
Field Marshal Sam Manekshaw, who is still known for his flamboyance, remembered as a strategic master and India's first field marshal, led the country to victory in the 1971 war.
Brigadier Mohammed Usman, posthumously awarded the Mahavir Chakra, he sacrificed his life defending the nation in 1947-48 India-Pakistan war.
And Major Somnath Sharma, the first recipient of the Paramveer Chakra, died protecting Srinagar airfield in the same conflict, a legend of fearlessness at just 24 years old.
The chapters aim to go beyond military history, teaching students vital values like resilience, emotional intelligence and a commitment to nation building. This initiative is part of a broader move to establish the National War Memorial as a core symbol in India's educational landscape.
Now, located at the iconic India Gate complex, the National War Memorial honors the memory of over 26,000 Indian soldiers who made the supreme sacrifice.
In the latest turn of events in Russia-Ukraine ceasefire talks, US President Donald Trump says that he will meet with Vladimir Putin without the Russian leader first sitting down with the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky.
And this is ahead of high-level US-Russia summit. Now listen to this first.
Is your deadline still standing for Vladimir Putin to agree to a ceasefire tomorrow, or is that fluid now?
It's going to be up to him. We're going to see what he has to say. It's going to be up to him. Very disappointed. Yeah.
For you to meet with him, he doesn't have to agree to meet with Zelensky. Is that what you're saying?
No, he doesn't. No.
So when do you think that meeting?
They would like to meet with me, and I'll do whatever I can to stop the killing.
Moscow's deputy UN ambassador, Dmitry Polyansky, has confirmed that President Trump and President Putin may meet next week.
Now, Trump's latest statement contradicted earlier reports that Putin-Zelensky meeting was a prerequisite for the US-Russia summit.
And this came after Trump set a Friday deadline for Moscow to agree to a ceasefire or face new sanctions.
When reporters in the Oval Office asked if the deadline still stood, Trump did not give a clear answer and instead said it was up to Putin. Since returning to the White House in January, Trump has been pressuring Moscow to end the conflict in Ukraine.
Now, recently, the Kremlin said that Putin was set to attend a summit with Trump in the coming days. Putin has named the United Arab Emirates as a potential location for the summit, but this was not confirmed by Washington.
After Kremlin's announcement, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky defended his country's right to participate in potential peace talks between the leaders of Russia and the United States.
Everyone obviously knows for sure that the key decisions in Russia are made by one person, and that this person is afraid of sanctions from the United States of America, and that it is right for Ukraine to be a participant in the negotiations. Russia's war is against Ukraine, against our independence as the embodiment of the independence of every European nation.
The reports of a potential summit surfaced after U.S. envoy Steve Witkoff met with President Putin in Moscow. Witkoff suggested a trilateral meeting with Ukraine's President Zelensky, but Putin dismissed direct talks for now, saying certain conditions must be created first, and unfortunately, we are still far from that.
The summit would be the first between sitting U.S. and Russian presidents since Joe Biden met Putin in Geneva in June 2021.
3 rounds of direct Russia-Ukraine talks in Istanbul have failed to yield any progress towards a ceasefire. The two sides remain far apart on the conditions they have set to end the more than 3-year-long conflict.
Trump and Putin last sat together in 2019 at a G20 summit meeting in Japan. This was during Trump's first term. They've spoken by telephone several times since Trump returned to the White House this year. And the age of hypersonic warfare has arrived in the Pacific as America deploys its most lethal weapon system on Australian soil for the first time.
Well, the Dark Eagle missile, capable of striking Beijing from Japan in under 30 minutes, has crossed the ocean as the ultimate warning to Chinese aggression. Simultaneously, Russia and China conducted joint naval exercises. The U.S. and Australia respond with their own devastating display of military might. Here's more in our next report.
The thunder of hypersonic warfare has reached Australian shores, in the most provocative display of American military might since the Cold War. The United States has deployed its devastating Dark Eagle missile system overseas for the first time, transforming Australia's Northern Territory into a launch pad for hypersonic destruction. This is no ordinary weapons deployment. This is strategic intimidation at Mach 5. Dark Eagle is a land-based, maneuverable hypersonic weapon capable of traveling over 6,100 kilometers per hour and striking targets more than 2,700 kilometers away. They operate via a battery of 4 launchers capable of carrying 2 missiles each. The strategic calculus of destruction are terrifyingly simple. From Japan, this weapon could reach Beijing in less than 30 minutes, traveling too fast for conventional missile defense systems to intercept. The new missile was tested during Talisman Sabre 2025, a massive 3-week exercise involving more than 40,000 troops from the United States, Australia, and 17 other nations. These massive drills are coinciding with massive drills held by America's adversaries. Russia and China held coordinated naval exercises in the Pacific. These drills held in the Sea of Japan. Thousands of troops, along with advanced warships, submarines and jets, took part in the joint military drills. The new American missile test comes at a time when Russia is also racing ahead with the mass production and deployment of its Oreshnik missile, which can strike several European capitals in a matter of minutes. The new age missiles like the Russian Oreshnik and American Dark Eagle are designed to strike first, strike fast, and strike undetected, slipping past air defenses and neutralizing high-value targets before a counterattack can even be launched. The shadow of hypersonic weapons now darkens every adversary's calculation, and the world has just witnessed who controls the stopwatch in this arms race. Bureau Report, WION World is one.
Next up, we look at the impact of Trump's tariffs on global economies.
Japan is one of the first countries to cut its economic outlook. The government has downgraded its GDP growth forecast for the fiscal year from 1.2% to 0.7%.
The government cited a drag from elevated U.S. tariffs that are curbing capital investment and dampening household consumption amid persistent inflation. This revision, while still slightly more optimistic than the private sector's 0.5% forecast, underscores growing concern over weakening domestic demand and global trade tensions.
Industrial sentiment paints a murkier picture. Although Japan's services sector enjoyed a rebound in July, manufacturing continues to sputter. Input cost pressures are easing, but weaker export demand, especially in autos, remains a burden.
The auto industry, long a bellwether for Japan's export strength, is bearing the brunt of Trump's tariffs. Toyota has sharply reduced its full-year operating profit forecast, largely due to a hit from U.S. import levies, coupled with a strong yen and rising materials costs. Honda's outlook is comparably strained. The company has trimmed its estimates as it adjusts to the new trade landscape. Experts say these developments reveal a fragile recovery for Japan's economy. While services show signs of resilience, the combined pressures of elevated tariffs and softening exports threaten to stem growth and temper industrial morale.
And a meteorite culture exhibition titled Stars Fallen, Greatness Risen has opened at the Shanghai Astronomy Museum.
The exhibition invites visitors not only to marvel at these celestial relics, but also offer a fascinating journey through meteorites from both scientific and mythological perspectives. Take a look at this report. Over to sports now. Barcelona has stripped goalkeeper Marc-Andre ter Stegen of the club captaincy and have opened disciplinary proceedings against the German international.
However, the Catalan Giants insist that the move is temporary. It's a dramatic escalation in an ongoing dispute over ter Stegen's back injury. Last month, ter Stegen announced that he had undergone surgery and would be sidelined for 3 months. But the 33-year-old has not signed or submitted a medical document detailing the injury to the club. Barcelona now want him to classify him as a long-term absentee and use the loophole to deduct part of his salary from their wage bill and make room for new player registrations. With the new La Liga season round the corner, the Spanish champions are once again struggling to meet their financial fair play requirements.
If they fail to balance the books, they may be unable to register new signings. So far, Barcelona have signed goalkeeper Joan Garcia from Espanyol and brought in Marcus Rashford on loan from Manchester United. Veteran keeper Wojciech Szczesny has also signed a 2-year contract extension, but none of these players have been registered yet. Ter Stegen has made over 400 appearances for Barcelona since joining in 2014. His trophy cabinet includes a Champions League title and 6 La Liga crowns with the club.
And a newly restored 4K version of Guru Dutt's classic film Pyasa has premiered to a roaring reception in Mumbai, marking a significant moment in the legendary filmmaker's centenary celebrations.
The restoration is a project by NFDC and FAI under the Government of India's National Film Heritage Mission. The premiere kicked off with a panel discussion featuring renowned lyricist Javed Akhtar and filmmakers Hansu Mehta, R. Balki and Sudhir Mishra. The panel explored Dutt's profound influence on Indian cinema, highlighting his poetic narratives, stunning visuals, and complex characters.
This special event is part of a broader retrospective showcasing that cinematic genius. Moviegoers can now experience several of his restored classics on the big screen at theatres this weekend. The lineup includes Kaagaz Ke Phool, Sahib Bibi Aur Ghulam, Aar Paar, Chaudhary Ka Chand, Mr. and Mrs. 55 and Buzz.
Their premiere was attended by notable film personalities such as Anubhav Sinha, Vikramaditya Motwane, Divya Datta and Rituparna Sengupta. This retrospective serves as a powerful tribute to Guru Dutt's lasting artistry and his timeless stories of love and longing. And the Moroccan capital of Rabat, the celebration of kaftans has got the fashion lovers excited. And how?
This at the National Finery Museum, heritage pieces which stand tall with contemporary designs and shed light on the evolution of this traditional outfit. Take a look.
There are kaftans from the production centres that have contributed to the making of the kaftan in Morocco, in the city of Rabat, known for its firmness and traditional method.
Well, that's on this edition of World DNA. Thanks for joining us.
But before we go, we're going to leave you with all the climate stories which are making headlines across the globe. Stay tuned.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening. As we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
अबे रिक्शा वाले पैसे ना लेना मैडम से, भाभी है तुम्हारी।
You are mad? ऐसा कुछ नहीं है।
As Ranjana re-releases in Indian cinemas, we tell you why the film's team is not happy.
I've sometimes been called the most famous comedian who nobody knows.
Meet world-renowned stand-up comedian Papa CJ.
Maybe you have to let go of who you were.
And just like that, bid adieu to the much talked about Sex and the City reboot.
We're still gonna have to call it date night in our 50s?
All this and much more with me, Diksha Bisla, on WION at these times.
WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION, World is One.
To bring the benefits of the Subhash Chandra Show to your educational institution, teachers and students, send an invitation to Juhi Jha at juhi@such.org.in.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.
Ready to dive into your daily dose of news?
Bringing you what's trending in the West and all that's setting trends in the East.
And all of this served up with a side of insightful banter.
We don't just bring you the latest stories.
We bring you your talking points for the day.
And while you do that, from the busy streets of New York, I will provide you with deeper insights on the developments through the course of the day in the U.S.
The show that keeps you ahead of the global curve. A conversation you'd want to be a part of.
A place where news becomes an engaging exchange.
We bring you stories that impact your present.
This is World DNA.
Join the conversation.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening. As we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch. WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION, World is One.
To bring the benefits of the Subhash Chandra Show to your educational institution, teachers and students, send an invitation to Juhi Jha at juhi@such.org.in.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.
Well, hello and welcome back. Thanks for staying with us. You're watching WION The World. I'm Jyotsna Kumar. Let's begin with the headlines. 61-year-old man shoots and kills his neighbor in Pennsylvania, then ambushes responding state police troopers, wounding 2 while firing dozens of rounds from a semi-automatic weapon. Attacker killed by police. Donald Trump announced he will host the leaders of Armenia and Azerbaijan for what he calls a historic peace summit aimed at ending a decades-long conflict between 2 former Soviet republics. Taiwan launches probe into 16 Chinese technology companies for allegedly operating in the country without proper approval. The firms are suspected of secretly setting up offices in Taiwan and hiring local staff without authorization. Chinese ambassador to India criticizes Donald Trump after the U.S. president slaps additional 25% tariff on Indian goods over oil trade with Russia, calls him a bully on social media.
Mr. President, just to follow up on the India tariffs, do you expect increased trade negotiations, since you've announced the 50% tariff?
No, not until we get it resolved. Modi's a friend of mine, but...
Donald Trump rules out increased trade negotiations with India after imposing 50% tariff on Indian imports. Remarks follow his warning of secondary sanctions on countries trading with Moscow. Brazil's President Lula da Silva dials Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi to discuss fallout of U.S. President Trump imposing 50% tariff on both countries. The 2 leaders vow to defend multilateralism.
Does Putin have to meet with Zelensky in order and before you and Putin have to meet? Or
No.
Donald Trump says he would meet with Vladimir Putin for upcoming talks on the Ukraine war, even if the Russian leader does not sit down with Ukrainian President Zelensky.
Well, we don't want to keep it. We want to have a security perimeter. We don't want to govern it. We don't want to be there as a governing body. We want to hand it over to Arab forces.
Benjamin Netanyahu says Israel plans to take full control of Gaza but does not intend to govern it, as he convened his security cabinet to discuss updated plans 22 months into the war.